There was a man who spent years trying to make a woman afraid of losing him. He replied instantly, explained himself constantly, chased whenever she pulled away, and believed that giving more would make him more valuable. Then one day he stopped. Not because he stopped caring. He simply stopped begging to be chosen. He started choosing himself. And something unexpected happened. The moment he no longer needed someone else's attention to feel important, his entire presence changed. He became calmer, more focused, more difficult to manipulate, and people began to notice. That is where real Stoic strength begins. If you have ever wondered why someone becomes more interested when you stop chasing them, this video will completely change the way you look at attraction, relationships, and self-respect. But let's make one thing clear. This is not about manipulating women, playing psychological games, creating jealousy, or deliberately making someone insecure. You cannot build a meaningful relationship by trying to control another person's emotions. The deeper Stoic lesson is much more powerful. Become the kind of person whose absence is genuinely felt because your presence brings value, not because you created fear. The ancient Stoics understood something that many people today forget. Your power begins where your desperation ends. When you desperately need someone's attention, you give them control over your emotional state. If they reply, you feel good. If they ignore you, you feel rejected. If they praise you, you feel valuable. If they criticize you, your confidence collapses. That is not love. That is emotional dependence. Stoicism teaches you to build something stronger. Inner stability. You can care deeply about someone without making them responsible for your happiness. You can love someone without abandoning yourself. You can desire a relationship without desperately needing one. And when you develop that mindset, something changes in the way you carry yourself. You stop chasing validation. You stop overexplaining. You stop begging someone to recognize your worth. You stop accepting disrespect simply because you are afraid of being alone. And you begin living according to your own principles. That is what makes your presence powerful. A woman should not fear losing you because you manipulated her emotions. She should recognize that losing you means losing a man who has standards, purpose, emotional control, integrity, and direction. There is a huge difference. Manipulation says, "I need to make her afraid of losing me." Self-mastery says, "I will become someone I respect, whether she stays or leaves." That second mindset is infinitely stronger. Think about the people you respect most. They usually aren't desperate for attention. They don't constantly announce how valuable they are. They don't need everyone to approve of them. Their confidence comes from knowing who they are. That is the kind of presence you should develop. Not arrogance. Not coldness. Not pretending you don't care. Calm confidence. There is a powerful Stoic principle: control what belongs to you and release what does not. You control your choices. You control your behavior. You control your discipline. You control whether you tolerate disrespect. You control whether you continue pursuing someone who clearly does not reciprocate your effort. But you do not control another person's feelings. You cannot force someone to love you. You cannot force someone to miss you. You cannot force someone to value you. And the moment you accept that reality, you become emotionally free. Many people destroy their attractiveness because they are constantly trying to secure another person's affection. They text repeatedly. They demand explanations. They monitor responses. They become jealous. They ask, "Do you still love me?" They panic whenever the other person becomes distant. Their entire emotional world begins revolving around another human being. Stoicism gives you another path. Instead of asking, "How do I make her afraid of losing me?" ask yourself, "Am I becoming someone I would be proud to be even if she walked away tomorrow?" That question changes everything. Because now your focus is no longer manipulation. Your focus is transformation. Build your purpose. Strengthen your body. Develop your mind. Improve your finances responsibly. Become emotionally disciplined. Develop meaningful friendships. Learn valuable skills. Create something. Read. Think. Work. Rest. grow, live. When your life becomes full, you no longer need to chase someone to fill an emptiness inside you. And that changes relationships dramatically. Because you are no longer approaching love from desperation. You are approaching it from abundance. You are saying, I want you in my life, but I can still stand without you. That is not rejection. That is emotional maturity. One of the most attractive qualities a person can possess is the ability to remain calm when circumstances become uncertain. Imagine someone suddenly becoming distant. The insecure reaction is immediate panic. What happened? Did I do something? Why aren't you responding? Are you talking to someone else? Do you still want me? The Stoic response is different. Pause. Observe. Do not invent stories. Do not react to assumptions. Do not sacrifice your dignity because you are uncomfortable with uncertainty. If there is something worth discussing, communicate clearly. If the person needs space, respect it. If the relationship is no longer mutual, accept reality. That level of emotional control is powerful because you are not allowing temporary discomfort to dictate permanent decisions. Another important principle is this. Do not reward disrespect with desperate attention. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, your responsibility is not to punish them. Your responsibility is to decide what you will tolerate. There is a difference between boundaries and manipulation. A boundary says, if you speak to me disrespectfully, I will step away from the conversation. Manipulation says, I will disappear for 3 days so you become anxious and chase me. One is self-respect. The other is a game. Never confuse the two. If someone genuinely values you, healthy boundaries will not destroy the relationship. They can actually strengthen it because both people understand where respect begins and where disrespect ends. You also need to understand the power of having standards. A person without standards accepts almost anything because they are terrified of losing someone. A person with standards understands that losing the wrong relationship can sometimes be a form of freedom. Read that again. Sometimes the thing you are desperately trying to prevent is exactly what you need to experience. Sometimes losing someone teaches you that you had been losing yourself. Sometimes rejection redirects you toward a better life. Sometimes someone's departure creates the space you needed to become stronger. The Stoic does not spend his life asking, how can I make them stay? He asks, what can I learn from this? That is the difference between emotional dependence and emotional strength. You should also stop trying to prove your value. If you constantly have to convince someone that you're worthy, something is already wrong. Your character should speak through your actions. Be reliable. Be honest. Keep your word. Have standards. Treat people with respect. Stand up for yourself. Keep growing. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. The right person will not require you to perform an endless audition for basic affection. And if someone doesn't recognize your value, your response should not be to become desperate. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply acceptance. You don't need revenge. You don't need insults. You don't need to make them jealous. You don't need to post things online hoping they will notice. You don't need to announce that you are moving on. Move on quietly. Build quietly. Heal quietly. Grow quietly. Let your life become the announcement. There is tremendous power in becoming comfortable with your own company. When you can enjoy your own life, loneliness loses some of its power over you. You stop accepting poor treatment simply because being alone feels uncomfortable. You stop confusing attention with love. You stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. You stop confusing obsession with connection. And you begin asking better questions. Does this person respect me? Can we communicate honestly? Do our values align? Is the effort mutual? Can we disagree without destroying each other? Does this relationship help both of us become better? Those questions are far more valuable than asking how to make someone afraid of losing you. Because real attraction is not sustained by fear. It is sustained by appreciation, respect, compatibility, trust, and genuine desire. If someone stays only because they are afraid, you haven't truly won. If someone stays because they genuinely value who you are, that is something worth building. And there is another Stoic principle you should remember. Never make your identity dependent on your relationship status. You are still a complete human being when you are single. You are still valuable when someone rejects you. You are still worthy when someone doesn't recognize your qualities. You do not become less important because another person failed to appreciate you. Your value cannot be determined by someone else's decision. Once you understand that, rejection becomes information rather than destruction. Maybe you weren't compatible. Maybe the timing was wrong. Maybe the relationship had run its course. Maybe you made mistakes and need to grow. Maybe they made mistakes and need to grow. Whatever the reason, you can learn without destroying yourself. That is emotional strength. And if you genuinely want someone to feel the weight of your absence, don't manufacture absence. Build a life where your presence naturally matters. Be the person who brings peace rather than chaos. Be the person who listens. Be the person who encourages. Be the person who has goals. Be the person who can laugh. Be the person who can walk away from disrespect without becoming bitter. Be the person who doesn't need to dominate every conversation. Be the person who doesn't collapse when things don't go according to plan. Be the person whose confidence doesn't disappear when attention does. That kind of person becomes memorable. Not because they played games. Because they were real. The Stoics also understood the importance of restraint. You don't have to respond to everything. Someone provokes you? Pause. Someone misunderstands you? Pause. Someone tries to make you jealous? Pause. Someone gives you the silent treatment? Pause. Your first emotional reaction doesn't have to become your final decision. You can feel anger without becoming angry. You can feel jealousy without acting destructively. You can feel fear without allowing fear to control you. You can miss someone without running after them. This is mastery. And the more you practice it, the stronger you become. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that you no longer need to check your phone every 5 minutes. You no longer need to wonder who viewed your story. You no longer need to analyze every message. You no longer need to ask yourself whether someone is losing interest. You have your own mission. You have your own standards. You have your own life. You care, but you don't cling. You love, but you don't beg. You communicate, but you don't chase endlessly. You give, but you don't abandon yourself. That is the mindset this video is really about. Not how to control someone. How to control yourself. Because the greatest victory is not making another person afraid of losing you. The greatest victory is becoming so emotionally grounded that you are no longer terrified of losing someone who doesn't value you. That is freedom. And freedom changes everything. So if someone pulls away from you, don't immediately chase. Observe. If they communicate honestly, listen. If there is a genuine problem, address it. If they need space, give it. If they return with respect and sincerity, decide whether the relationship deserves another chance. And if they continue treating you poorly, have the courage to leave. Not to make them suffer. Not to make them chase. Not to teach them a lesson. Leave because you respect yourself. There is an incredible peace that comes when you realize you don't have to convince anyone to stay. The people who belong in your life will make an effort to be there. You should still communicate. You should still compromise. You should still show affection. But never confuse compromise with self-abandonment. Love should not require you to become smaller. A healthy relationship should give both people room to grow. And when both people possess emotional strength, either person needs to use fear as a weapon. They choose each other freely. That is much more powerful. So the next time you feel the urge to chase someone because you're afraid of losing them, stop for a moment. Take a breath. Ask yourself, am I acting from love or fear? Am I communicating or begging? Am I maintaining my dignity or abandoning myself? Am I responding to reality or to a story I created inside my head? Those questions can save you from countless mistakes. And remember this. You don't need to become harder to love. You need to become stronger within yourself. Your goal isn't to make women fear losing you. Your goal is to become a man who doesn't fear losing himself. Because once you stop abandoning yourself for attention, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your confidence changes. Your standards change. Your conversations change. Your decisions change. And most importantly, your peace changes. You stop chasing what doesn't choose you. You stop begging for what should be freely given. You stop trying to control what was never yours to control. And you start building the one relationship that will influence every other relationship in your life. The relationship you have with yourself. If this message speaks to you, don't just listen to it and move on. Take one principle from this video and practice it today. Maybe it's learning to pause before reacting. Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's spending less time seeking validation. Maybe it's finally focusing on your purpose. Maybe it's accepting that someone else's decision doesn't determine your worth. Start there. Small changes repeated consistently create a completely different person. And if you want more powerful lessons on Stoicism, emotional control, self-respect, discipline, confidence, relationships, and becoming mentally stronger, subscribe to this channel and stay with us. We're not here to teach manipulation. We're here to build mastery. Because the strongest person in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the person who can walk away peacefully. Sometimes it's the person who doesn't react. Sometimes it's the person who can love deeply without becoming dependent. And sometimes it's the person who finally realizes, I would rather lose someone than lose myself. That is the kind of strength nobody can take away from you. And when you build that strength, you won't need to make anyone afraid of losing you. Your character will speak. Your standards will speak. Your life will speak. And if someone chooses to stay, let them stay because they genuinely value the person you have become. If they choose to leave, let them leave without destroying your peace. Either way, you keep growing. Either way, you keep moving. Either way, you keep becoming stronger. That is Stoicism. That is self-mastery. And that is real power. Now imagine the same man months later. The relationship ended. At first, he thought his world had collapsed. He kept reaching for his phone, expecting a message that never came. He replayed old conversations in his mind. He wondered what he could have said differently. He wondered whether he should send one more message. Then something changed. He put the phone down. He went outside. He started rebuilding his life. Not to make her jealous. Not to make her regret leaving. Not to post pictures showing how happy he was. He did it because he finally understood something. Your life cannot remain frozen because someone decided to walk away. That realization is where emotional freedom begins. When you stop measuring your worth by someone's attention, you become difficult to manipulate. You no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer need someone to tell you that you're attractive, successful, worthy, or lovable. You know what you bring to the table. And because you know yourself, you don't need to advertise yourself constantly. There is a quiet confidence in that. You walk differently. You speak differently. You listen differently. You make decisions differently. You stop trying to impress everyone. You stop explaining every decision. You stop arguing with people who have already decided to misunderstand you. You stop chasing people who repeatedly demonstrate that they don't want to meet you halfway. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you selective. And being selective is one of the most important forms of self-respect. You should not give unlimited access to everyone simply because you are afraid they might leave. Access to your time should mean something. Access to your attention should mean something. Access to your emotional world should mean something. That doesn't mean becoming arrogant or distant. It means understanding that your energy is limited. Every hour you spend obsessing over someone is an hour you could have spent building your future. Every night you spend analyzing someone's behavior is a night you could have spent developing yourself. Every moment you spend trying to prove your worth is a moment you could have spent living according to your values. The Stoic asks a simple question. Is this helping me become better? If the answer is no, reconsider how much attention you give it. There is another mistake many people make. They believe that being constantly available makes them more valuable. It doesn't. Availability itself isn't the problem. The problem is having no life outside the relationship. If you cancel everything whenever someone calls, abandon your responsibilities whenever they want attention, and constantly rearrange your life around them, eventually you can lose your own identity. Healthy love allows two people to have lives of their own. You should have your work, your goals, your friendships, your interests, your routines, your personal growth, your private moments. Then when you come together, you're bringing two complete lives into one relationship rather than asking another person to become your entire world. This creates something much healthier than fear. It creates appreciation. When someone has a meaningful life of their own, their presence becomes something you genuinely value. But remember the distinction. Don't manufacture busyness. Don't pretend to be unavailable. Don't ignore messages just to create anxiety. Don't use silence as punishment. Don't create artificial scarcity. That's manipulation. Instead, actually build a life that doesn't revolve around another person's attention. The difference is enormous. One is an act. The other is a lifestyle. And eventually, people can sense the difference. You cannot fake genuine inner peace forever. Eventually, your behavior reveals whether you're secure or pretending. That's why Stoicism doesn't teach you to perform confidence. It teaches you to develop it. The next time someone becomes distant, don't immediately assume the worst. People have problems. People become busy. People experience stress. People need solitude. Not every change in communication is rejection. This is why emotional discipline requires patience. Don't create a story before you have the facts. Your mind can turn a simple unanswered message into an entire imaginary disaster. You imagine another person. You imagine betrayal. You imagine rejection. You imagine abandonment. Then you react emotionally to something that may not even be true. A Stoic learns to separate facts from assumptions. The fact may be, they haven't responded yet. The story might be, they don't care about me anymore. Those are not the same thing. Train yourself to recognize the difference. This single habit can save you from countless unnecessary arguments. And when there is a genuine problem, communicate like an adult. Don't use emotional traps. Don't threaten to leave simply to make someone chase you. Don't say, "Fine, I'm done," when you secretly hope they will beg you to stay. Say what you mean. Mean what you say. If you're unhappy, communicate it. If you need something, ask. If your boundary has been crossed, explain it. If the relationship is no longer healthy, have the courage to acknowledge it. This is strength. A person who communicates clearly doesn't need psychological games. They don't need to manipulate. They don't need to create jealousy. They don't need to manufacture fear. Their honesty is enough. And there is another powerful lesson here. Never compete for a position that someone should willingly give you. If someone constantly makes you compete with other people for basic respect and affection, ask yourself why you are participating. You don't need to prove that you're better than another person. You need to determine whether the relationship is right for you. This shift is incredibly important. Instead of asking, "How can I beat the competition?" ask, "Is this situation aligned with my values?" Instead of asking, "How can I make her choose me?" ask, "Is she choosing me freely?" Instead of asking, "How can I make her afraid of losing me?" ask, "Am I building a life worth being proud of?" Those questions put you back in control of yourself. And that's exactly where your attention belongs. Your mission isn't to control another person's emotions. Your mission is to master your own. You cannot control who loves you. You cannot control who leaves. You cannot control what people say about you. You cannot control whether someone understands you. But you can control how you respond. You can control whether you remain dignified. You can control whether you keep your promises to yourself. You can control whether you continue growing. That is where your power lives. So stop trying to become unforgettable through manipulation. Become unforgettable through character. Be the person who keeps his word. Be the person who doesn't betray his principles for attention. Be the person who can apologize when wrong without becoming weak. Be the person who can say no without guilt. Be the person who can say yes without fear. Be the person who can love without possessing. Be the person who can leave without hatred. That person is rare. And rare things don't need to announce their rarity. They simply exist. When you become emotionally stable, your relationships become healthier because you're no longer demanding that another person constantly regulate your emotions. You don't need them to respond immediately so you can feel safe. You don't need them to constantly reassure you. You don't need to monitor their every movement. You can trust while also maintaining awareness. And if trust is repeatedly broken, you don't need revenge. You make a decision. Sometimes the strongest sentence you can say is, "This relationship no longer works for me." No insults. No screaming. No threats. No dramatic performance. Just clarity. Then you walk away. That kind of departure can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments because it demonstrates that you respect yourself enough to accept reality. But don't misunderstand this. Walking away should never become another manipulation tactic. Don't leave just because you want someone to chase you. Leave when staying violates your values or when the relationship has genuinely become unhealthy. Otherwise, communicate. Work through problems. Give people room to make mistakes. Relationships require patience. Stoicism isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming responsible for your emotions. You can feel love. You can feel sadness. You can feel fear. You can feel jealousy. You can feel disappointment. You simply don't allow those emotions to become your master. You acknowledge them. You examine them. Then you choose your response. That's the difference between impulse and wisdom. And this is where your transformation begins. You start becoming less reactive. Someone insults you? You don't immediately retaliate. Someone ignores you? You don't immediately beg. Someone disagrees with you? You don't immediately become defensive. Someone leaves? You allow yourself to grieve, but you continue living. Someone chooses another path? You accept that their freedom is not an attack on your worth. That is strength. Real strength doesn't mean you never hurt. Real strength means pain doesn't dictate your character. And if you want to become the kind of person whose absence is genuinely appreciated, focus on the quality of your presence. When you're with someone, be present. Listen. Pay attention. Remember important things. Keep your promises. Make them feel respected. Make them feel safe enough to be honest. Don't constantly stare at your phone. Don't treat every conversation like a competition. Don't turn every disagreement into a battle. Sometimes people remember how you made them feel long after they forget what you said. Be someone whose presence brings peace. That is far more powerful than trying to create fear. Because fear can make someone temporarily cling to you. But peace can make someone genuinely want to stay. And if this message is helping you see relationships differently, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. If you want more Stoic wisdom about confidence, emotional control, discipline, relationships, self-respect, and mental strength, this is exactly where you need to be. Don't just watch these lessons. Practice them. Your life changes when philosophy moves from something you hear into something you live. One day, you may look back and realize that the person you were desperately trying to make afraid of losing you was never the real problem. The real problem was your fear of being without them. Once you conquer that fear, everything changes. You become free. And when you are free, you can finally love without desperation. You can stay without fear. You can leave without hatred. You can care without losing yourself. And you can look someone in the eyes and honestly say, "I choose you. But I do not need to destroy myself to keep you." That is not weakness. That is not indifference. That is self-mastery. And perhaps that is the greatest Stoic lesson of all. Never spend your life trying to make someone afraid of losing you. Become so grounded in who you are that you are no longer afraid of losing anyone who refuses to value you. Build yourself. Strengthen yourself. Master yourself. And let your relationships become a choice, not a prison. Because the moment you stop desperately trying to control whether someone stays, you finally become capable of choosing whether they deserve to. And now, bring everything back to one simple truth. You cannot control whether someone stays. You cannot control whether someone misses you. You cannot control whether someone suddenly realizes your value. You cannot control another person's heart. But you can control the person you become. That is where your real power has always been. The strongest transformation happens when you stop asking, "How do I make her afraid of losing me?" and start asking, "How do I become so secure in myself that I don't need anyone's fear to feel valuable?" That question changes the entire game. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop manipulating. You stop chasing. You stop trying to manufacture jealousy. You stop disappearing simply to see whether someone will come looking for you. Instead, you build a life that genuinely deserves your attention. You wake up with purpose. You take care of your body. You sharpen your mind. You develop your skills. You pursue meaningful goals. You protect your peace. You surround yourself with people who respect you. And you become comfortable knowing that not everyone will understand your value. That's okay. You were never meant to be valuable to everyone. Your responsibility isn't to convince the entire world to appreciate you. Your responsibility is to live according to principles you can respect. This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes a way of life. When someone praises you, remain grounded. When someone criticizes you, examine the criticism without immediately becoming defensive. When someone loves you, appreciate it without becoming dependent. When someone leaves you, grieve if necessary, learn from it, and continue moving forward. When life gives you something beautiful, appreciate it. When life takes something away, accept reality and ask what remains within your control. That is emotional freedom. And emotional freedom is incredibly attractive because it creates something that manipulation never can: genuine confidence. A confident man doesn't need to convince everyone that he's confident. He doesn't walk into a room thinking, "How can I make everyone notice me?" He simply knows who he is. He doesn't need to dominate. He doesn't need to brag. He doesn't need to compete with every man around him. He doesn't need to prove that he is desirable. He knows his values. He knows his standards. He knows where he is going. And when a woman chooses to walk beside him, he appreciates her presence. But he doesn't surrender his identity to keep her. That is the balance you should seek. Love deeply. But don't lose yourself. Give generously. But don't tolerate exploitation. Be vulnerable. But don't abandon your boundaries. Communicate openly. But don't beg someone to understand what they have repeatedly chosen to ignore. Forgive. But don't repeatedly place yourself in the same destructive situation. Walk away when necessary. But don't use walking away as a weapon. Everything comes back to intention. Ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Are you stepping back because you genuinely need space? Or are you hoping someone becomes anxious? Are you focusing on yourself because you want to grow? Or are you doing it so someone will regret losing you? Are you setting a boundary because you respect yourself? Or are you using silence to punish someone? Your actions may look similar from the outside, but your intention changes everything. The Stoic doesn't manipulate outcomes. He manages himself. And that's why the deepest form of attraction begins with self-respect. When you respect yourself, you stop accepting relationships that constantly make you question your worth. When you respect yourself, you stop begging someone to treat you properly. When you respect yourself, you understand that being alone is better than being repeatedly disrespected. When you respect yourself, you no longer confuse suffering with loyalty. And when you respect yourself, you become capable of giving love without becoming a slave to it. There will always be people who leave. There will always be people who misunderstand you. There will always be people who don't recognize what you bring into their lives. Don't let that destroy your confidence. The world doesn't owe you recognition. Your job is to become someone you can recognize and respect when you look in the mirror. Imagine reaching a point where someone's rejection doesn't make you question your entire identity. You can say, "They didn't choose me, and that hurts. But I am still okay." Imagine reaching a point where someone becomes distant, and you don't immediately panic. You can say, "Something has changed. I'll communicate clearly and see what happens." Imagine reaching a point where someone disrespects you and you don't need revenge. You can simply say, "This isn't acceptable to me." Then you act accordingly. Imagine reaching a point where you can love someone deeply while still knowing that your life has meaning beyond the relationship. That's the destination. Not emotional coldness. Emotional independence. And once you develop it, you realize something profound. The person you were trying so hard to make afraid of losing you was never the person you needed to control. The person you needed to protect was yourself. Your peace. Your dignity. Your purpose. Your future. Your character. Don't sacrifice those things just to keep someone's attention. Because if keeping someone requires you to become someone you don't respect, then the price is too high. A relationship should add to your life, not erase you from it. And if someone truly values you, you won't need to constantly convince them that you're worth keeping. There may still be disagreements. There may still be difficult seasons. There may still be misunderstandings. But there will also be effort. There will be communication. There will be respect. There will be accountability. There will be a willingness to repair what has been damaged. That's what you should look for. Not fear. Not obsession. Not dependency. Not psychological games. Choose mutual respect. Choose honesty. Choose peace. Choose someone who chooses you. And if you ever find yourself desperately trying to make someone afraid of losing you, stop. Take a step backward. Look at your life. Ask yourself what you've neglected. Maybe you've neglected your goals. Maybe you've neglected your friendships. Maybe you've neglected your health. Maybe you've neglected your confidence. Maybe you've neglected the person you were before you became obsessed with keeping someone else. Go find that person again. Rebuild. Not because you want someone to notice. Build because your life matters. Build because your future matters. Build because you have potential that deserves to be developed. Build because you only get one life. And every day you spend obsessing over someone else's feelings is a day you cannot get back. Let your energy return to you. Let your attention return to your purpose. Let your discipline return to your routine. Let your confidence return to your character. And slowly, you will notice something incredible. You won't need to make anyone afraid of losing you anymore. You'll become comfortable with whatever outcome life brings. If she stays, you appreciate her. If she leaves, you continue. If the relationship grows, you grow together. If it ends, you learn and move forward. Your peace no longer depends on the outcome. That is victory. Because the ultimate goal isn't to become so powerful that another person fears losing you. The ultimate goal is to become so emotionally strong that you no longer fear losing yourself. Remember this whenever you're tempted to chase someone who has stopped choosing you. You don't need to convince someone to value you. You don't need to compete for basic affection. You don't need to manipulate someone into staying. You don't need to become cold to become strong. You don't need to pretend you don't care. You simply need to know your worth and live according to it. Be warm without being desperate. Be confident without being arrogant. Be loving without being dependent. Be patient without being passive. Be forgiving without abandoning your boundaries. Be willing to walk away without using departure as a threat. And above everything else, remain true to yourself. Because one day, you will understand that the most attractive thing you can possess isn't a perfect body, endless money, impressive clothes, or the ability to make someone jealous. It's inner stability. It's the ability to remain yourself when circumstances change. It's the ability to remain calm when someone pulls away. It's the ability to remain kind without becoming weak. It's the ability to remain firm without becoming cruel. It's the ability to love without losing yourself. That's strength. That's discipline. That's stoicism. So don't try to trigger fear in someone. Trigger growth in yourself. Don't make someone afraid of losing you. Become unwilling to lose yourself. Don't chase someone else's attention. Build a life that deserves your attention. Don't manipulate someone into staying. Become someone who can be chosen freely. And don't measure your worth by who wants you. Measure it by the principles you refuse to betray. If this video gave you a different perspective on relationships, self-respect, and stoic strength, subscribe to the channel. There is much more coming for you, more lessons on emotional control, discipline, confidence, relationships, mental strength, and the ancient wisdom that can help you become harder to manipulate and easier to respect. And don't just subscribe. Become part of this journey. Take these principles into your daily life. Practice them when you're angry. Practice them when you're lonely. Practice them when you're rejected. Practice them when you're tempted to chase. Because philosophy means very little if it only sounds good while you're watching a video. The real test comes when life gives you a reason to lose your composure. That's when you remember to pause. That's when you remember your standards. That's when you remember your purpose. That's when you choose wisdom over impulse. And perhaps one day, someone will walk away from you. You will feel the pain. You will miss them. You may wish things had been different. But instead of destroying yourself trying to bring them back, you'll take a deep breath and say, I wanted them in my life. But I will not lose myself trying to keep them. Then you'll continue. Quietly. Strongly. With dignity. And you'll discover that sometimes the greatest person you can become is the person who no longer needs anyone to fear losing you. Because you have finally learned how to never abandon yourself. That is the real power. That is the real freedom. And that is the Stoic way. There is one final lesson you must carry with you after this video ends. Never confuse being desired with being respected. Someone can desire your attention and still not respect your boundaries. Someone can miss you and still be incapable of giving you a healthy relationship. Someone can become afraid of losing you and still not be the right person for you. That is why your goal should never be to create emotional dependence. Your goal should be to create emotional strength. You want someone beside you because they genuinely choose you, not because they are terrified of being alone. And you should want the same freedom for yourself. The strongest relationship is not one where two people are afraid to lose each other. It is one where two people know they could survive separately but consciously choose to build together. That distinction changes everything. When you know you can stand alone, you don't cling. When you know you can walk away, you don't tolerate everything. When you know your identity exists beyond the relationship, you don't become consumed by it. And when both people possess that strength, love becomes a choice instead of a prison. So if you're currently chasing someone's attention, stop for a moment. Don't send another message simply because you're anxious. Don't create a fake story online to provoke jealousy. Don't suddenly become cold because you want them to chase. Don't disappear as a strategy. Instead, ask yourself what your anxiety is trying to tell you. Maybe you're afraid of rejection. Maybe you're afraid of abandonment. Maybe you're afraid that someone else is better than you. Maybe you're afraid that you'll never find someone again. But fear is not always telling you the truth. Sometimes fear simply wants certainty. And life cannot always give you certainty. You must learn to live peacefully with uncertainty. That is one of the greatest forms of emotional maturity. You can say, I don't know what will happen, but I know how I will behave. That sentence is powerful. Because now your peace is no longer dependent on predicting another person's behavior. You don't need to know whether they will stay. You only need to know that you will remain grounded regardless of what happens. That is freedom. And once you develop this mindset, you become less reactive in every area of life. You stop allowing one bad conversation to ruin your entire day. You stop allowing one rejection to destroy your confidence. You stop allowing one person's opinion to define your identity. You stop allowing temporary circumstances to dictate permanent beliefs about yourself. You begin thinking before acting. You begin observing before judging. You begin listening before responding. You begin choosing your battles. And slowly your life becomes calmer. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. That's what Stoicism has always been about. Not escaping difficulty. Becoming capable of meeting difficulty without surrendering your character. And relationships will test that character more than almost anything else. Love can expose insecurity. Rejection can expose desperation. Jealousy can expose fear. Conflict can expose emotional immaturity. But every difficult moment can also become training. The next time you feel jealousy, don't immediately act. Study it. Ask, what am I afraid of? What story am I telling myself? What evidence do I actually have? What action would reflect the person I want to become? This is how you turn emotion into wisdom. You don't have to destroy the emotion. You simply refuse to let it drive the vehicle. The same applies when someone pulls away. Instead of chasing, observe. Instead of assuming, communicate. Instead of panicking, breathe. Instead of manipulating, remain honest. Instead of begging, maintain your dignity. And if the relationship ends, let it end with as much peace as you can create. You don't have to turn every ending into a war. Some people are chapters. Some are lessons. Some are companions for a season. And some become lifelong partners. Your responsibility is not to force every person into the final category. Your responsibility is to recognize reality. That's why acceptance is such a powerful Stoic practice. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of everything. It means you stop fighting the fact that something has already happened. If someone leaves, they left. If someone doesn't reciprocate, they don't. If someone doesn't respect you, you cannot force them to become respectful. But you can decide what happens next. That is where your freedom begins. You may not control the event, but you control your response to the event. And that response becomes part of your character. So choose carefully. Don't let rejection turn you bitter. Don't let betrayal turn you cruel. Don't let heartbreak turn you desperate. Don't let disappointment turn you cynical. Let difficult experiences make you wiser. Let them teach you what you value. Let them reveal where you need stronger boundaries. Let them show you where you abandoned yourself. Then grow. One day, you may realize that the relationship you thought you couldn't live without was actually teaching you how to live for yourself. And that realization can be painful. But it can also be liberating. Because the moment you stop believing that another person is responsible for completing you, you become capable of building something much healthier. You no longer ask someone to save you. You meet them as an equal. You no longer need them to fill an emptiness. You invite them to share a life that already has meaning. You no longer say, "Without you, I'm nothing." You say, "My life has meaning, and I would love to share part of it with you." That's the difference between dependency and partnership. And if someone ever walks away because you refuse to abandon your standards, let them. It will hurt. But pain isn't proof that you made the wrong decision. Sometimes pain is simply the cost of doing what is right. Remember that. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel good immediately. Walking away can hurt. Saying no can hurt. Setting boundaries can hurt. Ending unhealthy relationships can hurt. But temporary pain can protect you from long-term suffering. This is why you must stop making decisions based entirely on what feels comfortable right now. Ask what creates the strongest future. Ask what protects your character. Ask what aligns with your values. Ask what your future self will thank you for. That is how a Stoic thinks. And when you live this way, your relationships become different. You no longer chase people who constantly withdraw. You no longer become obsessed with proving your value. You no longer tolerate disrespect simply because someone is attractive. You begin evaluating character. You begin looking at consistency. You begin noticing whether actions match words. You begin appreciating emotional maturity. You begin valuing peace over drama. And that is when you stop being fascinated by people who make you anxious. You start becoming attracted to people who make you feel respected. That's growth. Your standards change because you have changed. And perhaps the greatest sign of your transformation is this. You no longer need to announce that you've changed. You simply behave differently. You don't tell everyone you're disciplined. You become disciplined. You don't tell everyone you're confident. You become confident. You don't tell everyone you have standards. You enforce them calmly. You don't tell everyone you're moving on. You move forward. Quietly. Consistently. Without needing applause. And that is where real confidence comes from. Not from being admired. From knowing you can trust yourself. When you tell yourself you'll wake up early, you do it. When you tell yourself you'll stop chasing someone who doesn't reciprocate, you do it. When you tell yourself you'll protect your peace, you do it. When you tell yourself you'll become stronger, you keep your promise. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-respect grows. And every time you betray yourself for temporary attention, it weakens. So make yourself a promise today. You will no longer abandon yourself to keep someone else. You will no longer manipulate someone to prove that you're valuable. You will no longer measure your worth by another person's attention. You will no longer allow fear to make your decisions. You will become calm. You will become disciplined. You will become selective. You will become emotionally independent. And you will love from strength rather than fear. If someone chooses you, appreciate them. If someone respects you, respect them. If someone loves you, love them. If someone makes a mistake, communicate. If someone genuinely changes, consider forgiveness. But if someone repeatedly violates your boundaries and shows no desire to change, have the courage to protect yourself. Not with anger. With clarity. That is the difference between revenge and self-respect. Revenge says, I want you to suffer because you hurt me. Self-respect says, I refuse to continue participating in something that destroys my peace. Choose self-respect. Every time. And remember, your absence should never be a weapon. If someone feels your absence, let it be because your presence had genuine value. Let them remember your kindness, your discipline, your laughter, your integrity, your ability to listen, your ability to remain calm, your ability to make people feel respected. That's a legacy worth leaving. Not fear, not anxiety, not manipulation. Respect. And when people respect you, you don't need to demand it. Your behavior communicates what you will and will not accept. That is why the deepest answer to the title of this video isn't a trick. It is transformation. Don't try to trigger someone's fear of losing you. Build a life that makes your presence meaningful. Don't manufacture mystery. Develop depth. Don't pretend to be unavailable. Become purposeful. Don't create jealousy. Become secure. Don't play emotional games. Develop emotional intelligence. Don't chase validation. Build self-respect. Don't make someone afraid of losing you. Become unwilling to lose yourself. That is the lesson I want you to remember long after this video ends. Because one day, the person you desperately wanted to keep may no longer matter to you. Not because you became heartless. Because you became whole. And when you become whole, you stop begging people to complete you. You begin choosing people who complement your life. You stop asking, why don't they want me? And start asking, is this relationship worthy of the person I'm becoming? That question can change your entire life. So keep building. Keep learning. Keep training your mind. Keep protecting your peace. Keep your standards. Keep your heart open. But keep your identity intact. And when life tests you, remember the ancient Stoic principle. You cannot control what happens outside you. You can control what happens within you. Your response. Your character. Your choices. Your discipline. Your attitude. Your next step. Those belong to you. And that is enough. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe to the channel and become part of this growing community of people committed to mastering themselves rather than trying to control others. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the greatest revenge is not making someone regret losing you. The greatest victory is becoming someone who no longer needs their regret. Live with purpose. Love with wisdom. Walk with dignity. And never lose yourself trying to keep someone else. That is the Stoic way.